Hey everybody, so today, I don't know why, but I thought maybe I would show you my book collection, probably because it's always right next to me when I'm working, and I always kind of look at it and go, Harry, you should read more books because you have a lot of them. I really don't read much, but I do appreciate books, if that makes any sense. And what happens is I see a book and I'm like, I really want to read this. This looks so good. And then I read the first few chapters and I put it down, and then I have a hard time motivating myself to just pick up the book again. Just a book, like any book. But I thought I would show you kind of what my book collection looks like, because it's very weird and eclectic, and I don't know, maybe you guys would be interested in the kinds of things that I'm interested in reading, even though I don't really read very much. So let's get started. I have a lot of books I still have a few books from school and other books that you've seen, like some lettering books and stuff like that. I'll show you the whole collection. So here it goes. So first off, you're gonna notice that my books are in color order. I put them in color order because I'm a visual person, so I remember more so what a book looks like than I remember the author who wrote it. Of course I remember usually the title, but even that I'm not, if I remember the person who wrote it, I won't necessarily always remember the title. But I almost always remember the cover of a book. But also I just think it looks nice. I think it looks cool. It makes your shelf look better. So I put my books in color order. So let's get started. I'm going to try to do this really quickly. These are the books that have interested me or helped me in some way, or that I want to read in the future. Some of them I've read, some of them I haven't read. So let's start here. You can see these right here are these were a Bible study I did with someone, but we never really finished it. But I really loved Bible study, so I kept the books because I loved what we actually did finish. So I kept them because I wanted to do it again sometime and actually finish it, but I haven't. So this is the actual book, and then there's the study guide that goes with it. So I keep those next to each other. And then this is the Foundations of Christian Faith. This is if you want to read about church doctrine and what I believe, read the Bible, but this is an amazing kind of pairing and explains a lot of what I believe. So I love the way James Boice explains things, and I love the details in which he goes into. So this is the best. I took a doctrine class, and this was the book for the class, but I kept it because it was my favorite doctrine book ever. And this is The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. It's amazing, and I want to read it again. I haven't read it since junior high, so I keep it because I want to read it again someday. This is Pilgrims Progress. This, I believe, is the amplified version, and that means it's easier to read. If you ever try to read Pilgrims Progress, it's in Old English, and it's really kind of difficult to read. So this is a updated version of it, and it's pretty good, but I haven't actually finished it all the way through. I should read it all the way through because it's actually really well written. There's a few books in here that including this one, that I got from my pastor. He had a bunch of books, and I wanted to read one by Kuyper, so I took this one because it looked the most interesting to me, and I have not touched it since. So this is my prized possession. This is the Greek New Testament. It is literally in Greek, and no, I cannot read it, but I did take Greek in college, and my goal was to be able to learn Greek and try to translate this. I never did that, but I still really love that I have this. And I actually have, you'll see I have some Greek textbooks, so there's always still the possibility of finishing and actually learning Greek again, because that was the most interesting class I've ever taken. This is the Tim Gunn book that I got for a birthday and still haven't finished, but I love Tim Gunn, and so I do want to read that. This is Jesus Freaks. It's a devotional. Oh, this is volume 2. That's volume 1. It's a devotional So there's like a story every day, and it's about martyrs, and there's 2 of them, and I've read them both, and they're very good. This is a Bible. This is Unbroken, as you probably heard about the movie that recently came out, and I went and saw the movie, and my mom's like, you need to read the book, so she gave it to me, and I haven't read it yet. This is a really cool book. This is Longfellow Poems, and it is a book of poems, and I believe I got this book from my grandparents, so I kept it because I love poems, and I like to reference it every so often. And this is No Wonder They Call Him Savior. It's by Max Lucado, and I've read it all the way through, and it's amazing. I love Max Lucado's books. This is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I have not read, and this is The Girl Who Played with Fire. I have not read either of those yet. They're very hard to read. I started reading the first one, and it was very difficult for me to get through, but I love the movies, so I really want to read them. One thing about me too is that I am one of those terrible people, you could say, who I really like to watch the movie first before I read a book. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but like I said, I'm a very visual person, and so for me it's easier for me to read the book, and I feel like more things come alive in the book when I have seen the movie, and the book is just giving me more and more detail. And so I won't say that the movies are better than books, because I don't agree with that, but I like to watch the movie first sometimes, most times, because when I read it I can visualize everything, and I don't have that active of an imagination, so it helps me. And then this is The Mockingjay. I've read the first 2 books and not the other ones. This is Religion Saves by Mark Driscoll. I really love this book. It is so good. I highly recommend it. Mark Driscoll was he was raised in a very strict Christian church, and I really just love this book because he really helps you sort of understand, like, this title is sarcastic if you don't realize that, but I really love it because he just talks about how religion actually doesn't save us, and all the rules and the regulations and those kinds of things, they're not what ultimately saves us, but Jesus is. So this is a very good book. I recommend it highly. I made a pact with myself a long time ago that if I read a book and I loved it, that instead of keeping it for myself, I would give it away, because I felt like if I loved it, then I want to share it with somebody that I believe would love it too. So that's mostly true with my books. There's a few books that I keep because they're like, I love them. So there's a lot of books that you don't see here that I've read because, well, I don't own every book I've read, but also I give my books away a lot. Like if I rate them, then I give them to somebody who I think would really like them. So this is Les Mis. I bought this because it was a really good deal, and I love the movie Les Mis, but this book is ginormous, and I tried to start reading it the other day, and it was like, whoa, like, look how tiny the writing is. I don't know that I'll ever finish this in my lifetime, but I love this story, so maybe someday I'll actually get through the book. We'll see. Maybe when I'm old and gray and I'm bored with my life, I'll read more. Okay, I'm gonna pull these out together. These are plays. I think I got these at a yard sale, and I kept them because I love to read scripts. Like, if there's something I can get all the way through, it's playwrights and scripts. I love them. They intrigue me so much, and Shakespeare is something I really love too. I took a Shakespeare class in college and I loved it, and I really like Shakespeare a lot, and I want to read a lot of the famous plays. That's like one of my goals in life. Like, I really love to read scripts and playwrights and things. So that's why I have these. And I've had a few other ones. I don't know if I still have them, but I have read quite a few other ones that I just love, like modern. I love going to Barnes & Noble and like searching for modern day ones too. And this, George Orwell's 1984, is my bestie's favorite book of all time. She reads it once a year, and it is an amazing book. I've read it at least twice in my life, maybe more than that. Maybe not, just twice. It's so good, and I will probably read it again, maybe not as often as she does. But I love the idea of reading a book a year, like the same book, picking a book that you love that's your favorite and like reading it once a year. I really do love that, because like you love it for a reason. So it's like I watch a movie over and over, like why not read a book? Anyway, this book is so good. If you have not read this, like this is like a school, like you read this in school, like you're supposed to read it. But if your school hasn't made you read it, then go find this book and read it, because it's amazing. And this book I bought, I love C.S. Lewis, and this is a really good book, but I actually bought this for somebody, and then I decided I didn't want to give it to them. So I'm just going to read it for myself. And then I have another C.S. Lewis book, which is The Problem of Pain, and it's really good. I've read bits and pieces of it, but not the whole thing, so that's why I still have it, because I want to finish it. I'm never going to get through all these books. I'm just like never going to, but it's okay. Oh, here's another Macbeth, Shakespeare, and then another George Orwell, Animal Farm. This is a fantastic book as well. It's a little more political and not as good as well, how can you get more political in 1904? It's not more political, it's just like a different way of being very political, but like in a really good way. You should read this. This I think I got at a yard sale, Wuthering Heights. I still haven't read it, but I watched the movie recently and it was amazing, and I was like, I need to read that book because I've never read it. This is my favorite book from when I was little. I read this book so often. On the Banks of Plum Creek. This is like one of the books. I don't know if it'll tell me the number. This is number 4 from Laura Ingalls Wilder series, and this was my favorite one, and I read it over and over and over and over and over because I thought it was the coolest thing that they lived in a house in the hill, like literally that was made out of a hill, and I thought it was the most awesome thing ever. So I read it over and over when I was little, so I keep it because it's my favorite. This book is fantastic. It's really cool. It's a book of poems, Irish blessings, Scottish blessings. It's really cool, and they have different like themes, and you can read, and I love it as like a reference book because like you can go into it. It's literally made for that reason. You can go into the book and look up like, do you want to read about callings or homecomings or states of the heart or beginnings or desires, and then there's like different poems / blessings that go along with each one, and it's really cool. Let me show you some like that. It's a really cool book, and I haven't finished it all the way through, but I love it because it is that reference thing. It is something you can just kind of go to and sort of even like pray the different blessings. It's really cool. This is Lena Dunham's book. I really like this book. I really love the way Lena writes. This is extremely explicit. Maybe even a lot of adults shouldn't read this. But I love the way that Lena writes, and that is why I've never given it away to somebody, because I don't know. It needs to be someone who understands how to read it with discernment, I guess you could say. And so I love this book, but it's not for everyone. This is basically the Bible in novel form. It's like in the order that like the story of the Bible is written, and it's kind of so that when you read it, it feels like a novel. But I bought this so that because it was inexpensive, and also because I really wanted to read all the way through the Bible, but I thought this might be an easier way to get me to do that. And at first it was, I just haven't gone back to it, but I really need to. Let's go to the bottom shelf, shall we? We're gonna start with one of my favorites. Oh, this book is heavy. This is 9 Heads, and that is the weirdest title for a book. Yes, I agree. This is a book about fashion illustration, and I begged my parents to buy this for me for my birthday or Christmas or something, because I thought it was the coolest thing, and at the time I was really into fashion illustration, and so I wanted to learn about how to do it. And to be honest, I mean, I really have done a lot of fashion illustrations, but I'm not the best at it. But I do love this book because it's a great illustration reference, like guide to how to draw people and stuff. It's a really cool book, but it's very expensive. This is an exhaustive concordance for those times when you need to reference different scriptures together and understand things. It's the best exhaustive concordance you can buy, and I love it. This is, you've seen these. These are some lettering books I got from my dad. They have different types of lettering in them. There are 2 of them. And this is, you've also seen, this is a new lettering book that I got and still have not used and really need to. This is a really cool devotional about church history. So every day is like a different story about church history. And it's actually really cool, and I really liked it a lot. I don't think I got an entire year through it, but I did do it for a long length of a year. This is the Chronicle of Narnia, all of them together. It was a really good deal, and I love C.S. Lewis, so I wanted to have them all together. I've read most of these. This, Anthony Bourdain. I love Anthony Bourdain. I love the way he writes. I love his way with words, and what I've read of this so far, which is 54 pages, is fantastic. And this is another play, obviously, The Lovely Bones. I've read some of this, but I saw the movie and I really wanted to read the book, so I got it. This is the Institutes of Christian Religion. It's a good reference guide because it has all of the scripture references, different things, so you can just kind of look them up. And what did John Calvin have to say about that? These are textbooks from my religion classes, including a Greek workbook. This is an amazing book, The Divine Commodity. It's really about basically creativity in the church. It's fantastic, about art and creativity and why it's important to the church, and it's a really good read. Go read it. This is a book about Bonhoeffer. It's about his life story, and I still haven't finished it. It is very lengthy and detailed, but it is very good. Little Women. This book is fantastic. If you haven't read it, you're a silly person and you need to go read it. This is the original Pilgrim's Progress in Old English. This book, Tell Me the Story of Jesus. This is actually a book about how to tell your story, about your life story, your faith story. And I bought this book as a reference book, and I read all the way through it in a week because it was really good. And I just really liked it because it just explains the subtitle is Finding God in Ourselves Through Narrative. So just learning how to really understand what our story is and how to tell it to others, because it's important that we know what our story is, because one of the most important parts about community and people is their personal stories. So I have a few other books. They're in the other room. They're mostly autobiography type books. Some by Shane Dawson, Joel McHale, Aziz Ansari, Felicia Day. Just favorite people who have written books, and I want to read them, but haven't yet. These are my 2 favorite books of all time. We'll put them side by side. The Princess Bride is the funniest book I will ever read in my lifetime. It is amazing and hilarious, and if you have not read the book, you need to go read it. The movie is hilarious. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie too. But the book is like 10 times funnier. I love William Goldman's humor, and I love this book with a passion. It makes me laugh so hard every time I read it. And if you have not read it, this is so cheap to buy. This was $8.95, and I keep it on hand. And then I'm like, this is so funny, oh, I have it, and then I like give it to people because I'm like, it's so cheap, I'll just go get a new one, because this book is so funny and I love telling people to read this. So if you have not read this, you need to go read it. My favorite book of all time ever, other than the Bible, is this book. I love this book so much. It's so good. First of all, Frank Peretti is a fantastic author. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with him, he wrote like In This Present Darkness, and there's a couple of, they go together. There's like 3 of them, they go together. They're all about like angels and demons, and they're really good too. This is my favorite one by him. There are personal reasons why I love this book. I was going through a certain time in my life, and this book really like spoke to that time, that spoke to me during that time. It's really about, to be honest, it's about sin, and really not being able to conquer the sin in ourselves by ourselves, but that instead we need more than ourselves to do that. We need God to help us. And it's a fictional book about a monster in a forest, and you need to read it because it's so good. And I gave this to my friend Jenna, and she agreed with me. She thought it was fantastic. And I think the reason, like, I mean, other than like the tie that he makes between those two things, like the way Frank Peretti writes is so wonderful, because he really he writes like, it feels like you're watching a movie when you're reading, the way that he structures his books and writes them. And so they're just so good. And if you've not read this, I recommend it. Again, this book, because it's like a paperback, like little, what are these called, like a mini paperback. It's only $8 for this, and I have given this book to so many people to read, and like never seen it again, or like given it to them on purpose to never see it again. And so I've bought this book so many times, and I don't even care, because I think that everyone should own it and they should read it, and it's so good. So go buy this book, The Oath by Frank Peretti. It's so good, and it's worth it. It's worth your time. And if you're a book person and you like fiction and you like thriller type fiction, you should read this book. So go read it. It's so good. So yeah, those are most of my books. Like I said, I have a couple in my room, but I won't bore you with those, because I've probably already bored you enough. But hopefully you're interested in those, and that you liked my little collection. And let me know what some of the books that you're reading these days, what you recommend, maybe what your bookshelf looks like, and how many books you still need to read too, because my goodness, I have a lot of books to read, and basically I should start reading. That's what I need to do, start reading again. Thanks for joining me today and just hearing about my books, and I hope that you get the chance to crack open a book and read it, maybe today or this week or soon, and just have a time with you and some words on a page. So have a great day, guys. Make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, and leave a comment below, and maybe check out some of my vlogs. I do weekly vlogs every week here on YouTube, and daily vlogs on Instagram. So if you want to kind of know more about me and my daily life, you could say, check me out. Terry JH on Instagram and YouTube and Twitter. Okay, we'll see you guys later. Have a great day. Bye.